You see those two guys walking off with the daughter. They're taking her away. They've given their daughter to the pedo cult. Kubrick yelling at all the executives and saying, it's my movie, you can't cut it. You can't cut my film, blah, 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 blah. Big argument going on. Then he dies like 4 days later.
Those were not just ordinary people there. If I told you their names, I'm not going to tell you their names. But if I did, I don't think you'd sleep so well.
And as I've walked into another room, and in the floor is a big, massive, and they start putting on these cloaks, and they all stand in a circle, and he's lighting these candles. They were on like 3 candelabras in 3 points around this hexagram.
This is super creepy. As Jeffrey Epstein's files have been getting released, the more and more this movie is seeming to become true. It's about a sinister group of elites who try to trap people into their cult. Was this movie trying to portray or point something out that actually is happening in real life? That's what we want to know. There's this creepy scene here, all of them dressed in robes, someone in dark. Is this true? And guys, there's the story of the producer of this movie. He was upset that someone was trying to take out scenes from his movie. The producer and the writer of this movie. But then 4 days later, he died. Was he trying to release something and point out something that was mysteriously going on in the background of society this whole time? And elites, were they trying to delete and expose this? And on Joe Rogan's podcast, they talk about this very instance.
That was from Set, and I was reading it over the weekend, and I saw that it has this, I mean, I've known this for a long time, but I started really thinking about it over the weekend. It's missing a narration. It's missing a third-person narration that was originally in the movie. And that's because the movie was recut and changed after his death. And they will deny it. But as a student of Kubrick, I'm watching the movie and I'm like, well, Kubrick wouldn't do that. Kubrick wouldn't do that either. Kubrick would have trimmed this scene.
I didn't know they recut it after his death.
Okay, so apparently
I think they finished it.
Well, that's the party line.
That's their version.
That's the party line. But I think that they changed the notes, the close-ups, the inserts of the notes. I think those are changed. It's missing a narration. It's definitely missing a narration. A third-person narration, like that scene where he sees the prostitute who's died. He's at the morgue and he's looking at her and he's like leaning over her. It's a bed for narration. There's this whole thing. What they do instead, because they couldn't say that Kubrick finished the movie because they hadn't done the recording of the narrator yet. And so maybe they just kind of kludged it together, except there's an entire thread that's kind of been squashed in that film, and that's the two men that are throughout the movie that are constantly in the background of the film, who eventually in the final shots of the film you see, like Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman in that final scene in the toy store when she's looking at the Rosemary's Baby bassinet, which is totally Kubrick saying something, and they never take their eyes off their daughter until the moment they take their eyes off and the final line of the movie is coming up. You see those two guys walking off with the daughter. They're taking her away. They've given their daughter to the pedo cult. That's what's happened at the end of the movie. And there's an incident where when they first screened the movie in England, people who were outside, this is all secondhand, by the way. There were people who were outside of the theater who could hear inside of the theater Kubrick yelling at all the executives and saying, it's my movie, you can't cut it. You can't cut my film, blah, 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 blah. Big argument going on. Then he dies like 4 days later.
Oh, Jesus.
So somebody went in and finished the movie, but I think when they finished the movie, they hid the film. The movie got changed into something else. And I would love to finish that film.
Have you ever made an attempt?
I've thought about it. And reading the script over the weekend, I started seriously thinking about it. Well, somebody should recut this. Or somebody should.
So it would just be a matter of recutting it with narration?
Well, yes and no. There's obviously missing. There would be missing footage now. Things have been removed and
is that
taken
accessible?
down. No. Not unless you crack it open and there's no way anybody.
Here's the thing.
They would never.
But hold on. Here's the thing. Now we have AI.
Well, I know that's you're one step ahead of me. I'm one step ahead.
Because
I've actually been experimenting a lot with
Super, super interesting. And they're saying, does this have to do with these elites taking away children? That's something to think about. Yeah, so now we're going to show a little bit of what's going on within this movie.
Details. It's never quite 100% confirmed, but it's alleged that this guy in the tricorn hat that nods to Bill is actually Ziegler.
Ziegler?
But I don't know for sure. Maybe he was actually the one to notice that he was an outsider and to test him further to confirm his suspicion.
Those were not just ordinary people there. If I told you their names, I'm not going to tell you their names, but if I did, I don't think you'd sleep so well.
You can't be 100% certain. I never really got the vibe that this guy was trying to save Bill, but really just test to see if he is an interloper. But you'll never be able to fully understand it, and you always fear.
What you don't understand? Dog.
The entire sequence is like 25 minutes long, but pacing-wise, it feels like it's just 3 minutes, because it so perfectly envelops the viewer into Bill's shoes that you just lose track of time with how weird and mythical it is.
Please, come forward.
Its ambience, its vibe, and its setting is like a horror movie. There are so many subtle details that you completely miss because you are so caught up in the visuals and the way the scene is actually presented to you, the masked attendees. You know, if you actually stop and analyze the masks themselves, each one is unique and tells its own story, which is just very eerie. Especially considering each one of these masks hides an elite or famous wealthy individual, which is clearly fiction and not ever representative of anything that has happened.
That's crazy. That's the thing. People are saying this has to do with something that makes you think. And that makes you think about that one podcast of this lady who said she was with elites who were gathering around and wearing cloaks, and they did exactly what they were doing. She was wearing cloaks at these Hollywood elite parties. Something super sinister about that. And I'll pull up that video.
In real life ever. Actually, a lot of the masks are Venetian in nature. This mask looks like a plague doctor, which, you know, the plague hit Venice pretty hard back in the 1300s. There's a Donald Trump mask. This mask, all the way back there, looks like George Soros. There's even an Illuminati mask. Bill outs himself partly because he chooses the mask of a commoner, the Volto mask, which accentuates the eyes, whereas the other masked members have the eyes distorted or covered completely. Thematically, the masks themselves are important to the film's narrative and have symbolic purpose. It's all about cover-ups, and it's about the lies we tell to each other. I mean, Bill was already involved in a mini cover-up at the start of the film, at Ziegler's party when a prostitute, Mandy, has an overdose, and he calls in Bill to see if he can save the situation. Ziegler is shown to be a very wealthy and well-known individual with a reputation to uphold, so this would obviously be a disaster to his well-being, and it's just uncomfortable to me how he kind of wags his finger at her like, you didn't say the magic word, calls her kiddo.
That was really one hell of a scare you gave us, kiddo.
And she apologizes.
Sorry.
The audacity of this man. There's so many different thoughts and feelings that enter your mind as you watch this. The man in the red cloak doing this weird ritual with a staff and a smoking bowl and a chain. The setting itself, you know, the mid-1800s Victorian architecture is just dazzling, but creepy at the same time. All of the exterior shots from the outside of the mansion are actually from Mentmore Towers, which was originally built for the Rothschilds actually. The ritual itself is a Christian sermon, delivered in Romanian, but played in reverse, which is what gives it that strange, eerie feel to the
What? It's played in reverse? Man, that is chilling.
whole thing.
Please, come.
The ringleader in the red cloak has this mocking, happy manner about him.
Get undressed. Yes, you will kindly remove your mask.
That's crazy. So now I want to pull up a video here. This lady explaining something very similar that she went through, believe it or not. She did this whole demonic ritual to get money and fame. And then she started to get a lot of opportunities from random people all over. And one of them was to go to this cult, like upper Hollywood celebrities. And
then I started getting taken to dinner parties. Wasn't always a ritual, but the people I was there with were all involved in it. And the very, very familiar faces that were in these places. The next one I went to was down south in Berkshire. And it was my initiation, basically. And I walked in and as I'd basically been booked by this couple that own this house. They had a business and they wanted me to model some like lingerie, stocking type of thing. My face wouldn't be in it, just me lower body. I was like, yeah, great. So they invited me down. And as I walked in, I remember having this feeling of dread. There was a fucking crow just stood next to my car as I got out the car and it was squawking at me. And I remember thinking, that's an omen. And I walks in and they were all over me, making a big fuss of me, like, oh, here you are, you're all new to all this, aren't you? And I was like, yeah, I'm new to all this. And she just looked at me in the most weirdest way. Like, she just stopped suddenly speaking and stared at me and went, don't worry, we're going to take it easy on your mum. And I was like, okay. So we had dinner, and at one point, the fella who owns this house, the fella of the couple, stood up at the end of the table and he did a toast. And at the end of the toast, he put his champagne flute down. I went like that. Looked around the table and everyone was doing it, and I'm going, what? And I was in the shouts. And stops, picks up, cheers everyone, chin chin, and just carries on. And at one point they go, right, should we go to the drawing room? I think it was the drawing room. Some back room, big double doors, big wooden double doors, massive house. And it's like a games room. There's books in there. There's, fucking board games, drinks and stuff like that. So everyone sits down and it's like they were red velvet sofas that lined it. And it was like an oblong shape. So everyone sits down on these sofas and we get to drink. And they were like, right, let's play some games. And I'm thinking, right, play fucking checkers, chess. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Maybe this is part and parcel of it because I've been immersed in a world at this point where I'm not used to it. It's nothing that I've ever been used to. It's all very much luxury, high society type of stuff. And he gets this gold mat off the shelf. And they're spinning this mat, and whoever it lands on, this woman's asking like a mad question to them. And it ends up landing on me. And I panicked. I don't know why, but I just panicked. And she looked me right in the eye and she went, once upon a time, you did something really, really naughty, didn't you? What was it, Molly? And I was like, I made a wish and it come true. And she just burst out laughing and went, yeah, spun the star again. And I'm thinking, this is full.
So for context, she made like this satanic ritual and all of this happened after that. She started getting everything that she wanted, but then she started to get the Baphomet figures haunting her at night and in the day. That's what's crazy.
And where's this going?
And you'll see how she explains this. It sounds exactly like Eyes Wide Shut movie. And it's really messed up. So what if the Eyes Wide Shut movie was pointing out things that were actually happening within society?
And after a while, a couple of people left, and there was me, this couple that owned the house, and two other people that I've met out the industry that knew the agent. The agent wasn't there at that one. And as I've walked into another room, we've come out the games room, we've been taken into another room, there's a checkerboard marble floor. And in the floor is a big, massive, it's not a pentagram, it's called a unicursal hexagram.
Freemasons.
You've heard of it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's something that Crowley uses.
Yeah, Freemasons.
Yeah. And there's one of them, and they start putting on these cloaks, the fellas, the women don't put one on. And they all stand in a circle and he's lighting these candles. They were on like 3 candelabras in 3 points around this hexagram. And he goes round and he's saying words and he's touching people on the head as he goes round, does it to me. And then everyone takes hands and I'm stood next to the fella of the couple who's leading this ritual. And this girl next to me takes my hand, so I've got all there on, but he doesn't take it. And he walks into the middle, takes a knife out of his pocket, and I can still remember it like it was yesterday. It had a deer horn as its handle. And he takes the knife out and he nicks it on, he starts on that side on the left of me, touches her finger with the knife just so it bleeds a little bit and goes through each person until he comes to me and he says, step forward. So he steps forward into the pentagram and he's looking at me. And I can't quite see his face because he's put a veil over it.
Wow.
And I'm thinking, But I could see these eyes, and his eyes had gone black. He had blue eyes initially, and his eyes were black as night. And I'm thinking, is it the light? Is it?
That's weird because in that movie, they only show black eyes. You can't see them. That's also creepy, guys.
This? Is it that? And then he turns his back to me, and he blows out a couple of the candles. And as he does, you can see a very, very blatant shape of Baphomet's head appear over the hexagram from what he'd done with the light. He turns around to me. He cuts me behind my ear. He takes the blood drip that's on the end of his knife and he pops it directly in the middle of the hexagram, where basically the middle of Baphomet's head shadow is.
Wow.
And then he walks back to the edge of the circle. We all hold hands again. Everyone's dripping with blood. And I'm like this. And everyone's just stood there like saying these fucking words. And I'm kind of like, and I panicked. I was shaking like a fucking leaf, thinking, what the fuck is this? This is mad. Am I getting sacrificed? Is this where it's going? And then out of nowhere, hoods off, like nothing had happened, throws them back on the shelf. The women walk out. We're retiring for bed. And they just left me in this room, and I go around and I'm blowing the candles out like that's a fire hazard and grabbing through motions because I was in shock. And I goes to bed. Does the shoot for their brand a couple of weeks later. And I don't see them again. Never again, this couple. The other people that were involved in that ritual, seen them multiple times, but this couple, that was the only time I ever seen them.
That is awfully creepy. Awfully psycho. What in the world? Guys, don't be messing with this stuff. Don't be trying to find fame and fortune just so that you can sell your soul. Doesn't that sound really familiar? It sounds really familiar to Epstein stuff.
Well, we definitely...
Yeah, that is so scary. To think that people would let this go on for so long. All of these Hollywood elites, all of these people who think that they could get away with it. That's the reality though, because when you have all the money in the world and you realize that alone itself will not truly satisfy, so then you have to go to things that are even more debaucherous, even more cynical, even more weird. You're screwed, guys. You're screwed because you don't have a relationship with God. You don't have a relationship with the Father who can fill all of those holes. You try to fill those holes with everything else but God. And that's where you get complete satanic things. So that's crazy, guys. Anyway, I'd love to know what you guys think in the comments below, whatever that may be. It's also fascinating stuff. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't. And always remember, guys, Jesus loves you.